as you have heard, we are coming to you this evening and there are 11 million Australians in lockdown, and the Delta strain of COVID-19 is wreaking havoc in New South Wales and Victoria. And in the midst of this crisis, it was another bad week for Australian politics. Is it too much to expect our political leaders to rise to the occasion in a time of crisis, instead of bickering and wasting time on politics and the blame game? Is it too much to ask our politicians to keep their heads down and get the job done, instead of taking partisan potshots at each other?
You must stay at home and work from home. However, if you cannot do that, you are able to leave home for work. And in those circumstances,
why not tighten that though? The Victoria did it very successfully, and you're saying
no, they didn't.
Well, the Victorian government is just politicising the crisis. Their whinging and the whining is continuing.
I would be staggered if the Prime Minister and the Federal Treasurer want to look Victorians in the eye and say, you were locked down for 5 days, you weren't locked down for 7, therefore you're not getting anything. I really don't think they would want to get into that sort of argument. I certainly wouldn't want to, and I'm confident that we can have a mature discussion. I've got a good relationship with the PM. He knows where I'm coming from, he knows where I stand, and that's with every single Victorian, and making sure that they get the support that they are fundamentally entitled to.
Is it too much to expect our political leaders to try and pull us together rather than tearing each other apart? This week we had the spectacle of Scott Morrison blaming the immunisation experts for the slow rollout of the vaccine. These are the same experts he made a virtue of relying on for advice previously. Meanwhile, Victoria and the Commonwealth had a nasty spat over the fact that the federal government has offered a superior financial package to New South Wales compared to Victoria, while Gladys Berejiklian got carried away with her own hubris about New South Wales' superiority over Victoria and failed to take the tough and fast measures needed to contain the Sydney outbreak. While a politician should be damned for playing politics in a crisis, I do want to make an important point that I think we should be forgiving of genuine mistakes that are made. Big decisions get made in real time by government, not with the benefit of hindsight afforded to the armchair critics, like Rita, who we heard from earlier. While it might not feel like it, Australia has been served well by our federal system of government. Now, I'm talking here about the system, not the politicians themselves. When the Commonwealth was prevaricating, the states closed the borders and stopped the spread of the virus. When the Commonwealth was frozen in inaction on quarantine, the states stepped in and took action.
Unbelievable.
When the Commonwealth Covid Safe App turned out to be a complete dud, the states developed their own QR code check-in, which is working very well now. For its part, the Commonwealth's business and income support structures have worked well, with JobKeeper being the standout. Each state has learned from the mistakes and successes of the others. Gladys Berejiklian may not admit it, but there is plenty she is now copying from Victoria in this latest Sydney lockdown.
This is embarrassing.
Daniel Andrews may not admit it, but there are plenty of things Victoria has copied from New South Wales with a more sophisticated approach to opening up. The PM will never admit it, but he has made a multitude of changes based on feedback from the states. This is a good thing. This is how it is meant to work in a federal system, even when it can seem a bit messy. Meanwhile, the rest of the world tells us a lot about where Australia is heading. With mass vaccination largely complete and vaccine available for anyone who wants it, the US has dropped almost all restrictions and life has returned to normal. In the UK, 2/3 of adults have received 2 doses of the vaccine, so this Monday, as Rita was telling us, has been declared Freedom Day, with the last remaining restrictions being lifted. Although nothing is ever as simple as it seems with COVID-19, the new highly transmissible Delta strain does have scientists worried, with many in the UK now arguing that the lifting of restrictions is unscientific and unethical. If the UK critics say Freedom Day strategy will not only cause deaths but also debilitating long COVID for many people, while increasing the risks for the medically vulnerable. Rita, it's not as clear-cut as certainly you and I would like,